In today's free tutorial video, we're going to install some LED lights, some extra LED lights on the front of a 2013 Victory Cross Country. They're pretty badass, pretty inexpensive, and of course we show you how to do the install so you don't have to pay a mechanic to do that. That will save you some money. Part of the process of installing the LED lights is we're going to have to take off the outer front fairing. We have a video just for that if that's all you're interested in. You can head over to lawabidingbiker.com/Victory Outer Fairing. There we just show you how to remove and install the front fairing. Today's video is all about installing the LED lights. Of course, in this video, part of that process is removing that fairing, so we're certainly going to show you that too. A permalink for this, if you ever want to get back to this particular video, lawabidingbiker.com/Victory LED lights. All right, what are you waiting for, bikeaholics? Grab a wrench, let's get at it, huh? Oh, and don't forget, if you want to know when all our exclusive videos come out, make sure you sign up for the free email club, lawabidingbiker.com/email club. Take you about 30 seconds. Also, subscribe to this channel so you're notified. So this is the LED light kit that we're going to put on a 2013 Victory Cross Country. And you can see the clamps there, they just mount to the highway bars, the crash bars. So we'll show you how to get these on and how to wire them by putting on that Victory right there. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and pop the, there's a plastic ring around the headlight. You just get your fingers in there, and it's got some tabs. And that's what Lurch is doing right now, and it'll just pop right out like that, guys. Alright, so after you get the little trim piece off, there's 4 bolts inside the headlight housing there, and Lurch is pointing at them. And it's a 6mm Allen wrench that we're going to take those off with. Alright, and Lurch is just pulling the last bolt out there, and then the headlight's going to come out there. It's got a couple wires on the back, and we'll just pop those off. Grab a little flathead screwdriver, just a couple little tabs there you can pop out so you don't break them. There's 2 of them on the back of the headlight, so Lurch will do that one, and then the other one. Alright, so we're going to move into the inside of the fairing, and on each side of the fairing there's 3 bolts that we need to remove. And that's a 4mm Allen wrench is what he's using. And this bike has wind deflectors on it, so those are actually just used to hold the wind deflectors and also secure the fairing, so we're going to take those off. And we got to remove the speaker grills, and just use a trim tool or a flathead screwdriver. Just be real careful that you don't mar them and stuff, but once you get them, you can get your fingers in there like Lurch, and they actually just pop off with a couple tabs. We've got to access a screw back in there. So once you get that speaker grill removed, you're going to see 2 bolts there, and we're just going to take the outside one off. The inside one actually just secures the speaker, but that outside one is what's holding that outer fairing to the inner fairing. Once all those are loose, they're just going to go ahead and remove the fairing, and if you grab the bottom there first, there's a little nipple and it kind of comes off, and then the rest of the fairing will back off there. Then there's 2 wires in there, and you're going to see Lurch, he's going to have to grab a screwdriver and pop both those wires. And again, just a little tabs, you just put a screwdriver in there, and then you can back those off. There's 2 different wires that Lurch is working on.
What I have in my right hand is simply a hot wire tester. It's got an alligator clip on one end to hook to the ground, and then you hook the tip to the of this tool to a hot wire. If it's hot, the light inside of this will light up.
And you can see the alligator clip up there. Can you point to that for him? And we just hooked an alligator clip to a ground, find a good ground for it.
The dealer told us that we had 3 wires in the console here. We have 3 right here. We're going to see which one's hot. That one is not.
And the ignition is on the bike right now.
The ignition is on. That one's not. That one's not. The lower's not. And, oh, there we go. So the yellow and the pink is hot. Mario, can you turn the high beams on, low beams, and turn the ignition off? And the light went off. So Mario wants these hardwired so that when ignition is on, his lights are on and they're not affected by his high beam or the low beam. So by hooking it to this yellow and pink wire, we'll have it hot when the ignition's hot. Plus by putting it here, it runs through relays and through breakers, so we'll be fine.
So moving to the left side of the bike here, we're going to start with, and we're going to go right to the engine guards, the crash bars, whatever you want to call them, and we're going to start mounting the lights right now.
So the clamps come with a set bolt here. It is a 1/8, sorry, Allen. I'm going to back that little guy out. Once I have that set screw out of the way, I'm going to take a sleeve out of the inside of this clamp. It's made for smaller girth engine guards. We won't need it for this one. And put it around and put the set screw back in place so that we can temporarily clamp it and get an idea where we're going to mount it. Now that we got the clamp in place, we're going to put the bolt back through and the spacer right there. Once those are in place, we'll attach it to our light. There's a threaded spot right here for it. Just get it snug and started. And we got a 6mm Allen here to tighten it up. So we're going to mount these on the outside of the bar because Mario's going to put some leather covers on the front here, and he's not 100% sure where the light's going to fit. Later on, once we get him fully seated, he knows everything fits in place. You could drill 2 holes on the underside of this crash bar and run the wire in the inside of the crash bar so you can't be seen. But for now, I'm going to run it up through this little rubber boot here. That's at the top, at the crash bars near the motor. For now, we're just going to leave it loose and let it hang there until we get the other side hooked up and we can run through and do the final wire up.
And of course, Lurch is doing the same thing on the other side. And Lurch is just finishing on this side, same exact as the other side, getting them all hooked up.
So I'm going to take both wires, one on each side, and fish them up through and get them up to where I need them. I'm not going to do the final fitment yet. What I mean by that is I'm not going to zip tie them all in place yet because I need to leave a little bit of extra length. So I'm going to come up through the console here from the back, one on each side, and get these wires up here where we need them. Our hot wire's right over here. So I'm going to fish this one over here and do the same on the other side. So of course I put a towel down over a front fender to make sure we didn't get any scratches on it. These wires, I fished them and left quite a bit of slack. They're a little bit long, so I'm going to take about a foot off of each one of these here, just to shorten them up so I don't have so much excess to deal with. Now I'll just have to strip back a little bit of this sheath here so I can get to the actual wires. There's on that side, and now on the other. And then we'll have to strip back the individual wires. These are LED lights, so they don't take a whole lot of amperage through there. So I got some small wires, so be careful with those little guys. And each of those we're going to strip the red and the black. So now we're going to take the 2 wires or the 2 lights and wire them together. So I need to take both reds and twist them together and get them prepped to be tinned with solder. So I'm going to get the red side together. Now we're going to hook the black side together. Now I've got those both twisted together and I can feed some solder into them. So what I'm doing is feeding some solder, what they call tinning, into these 2 wires and bonding them together. You can use butt connectors, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just a bit of a perfectionist. My dad was electrical engineer and taught me how to solder, so that's why we're going to solder these together. So this is our hot and ground, our hot ignition wire and our ground from earlier that we tested. I'm going to clip off this connector, but I'm going to clip it back about 1 inch so that Mario can save it in case he wants to use it for something else later, just in case. Because we're soldering these 2 pieces together, we're going to use shrink tube to cover up the soldering, so I got to slide it onto the wires. After that's on, then we're going to connect these red wire to the yellow wire, which is our 2 positives. Now we're just going to pull the shrink tube back in place. We've got the wires soldered, get them right where we need them to be. And you're just going to use an everyday lighter here up underneath that shrink tube, and it'll shrink right down to those wires. See it shrinking right down.
And again, you guys can use butt connectors if you want. We're just going a little above and beyond here. All right, so what Lurch is doing now, and again, later we're probably going to drill a hole and run these through the crash bars, but he's got some soft protective lowers that he's going to put on for winter. And we're not exactly sure how those are going to fit, so we want to get those on before we do a permanent placement of these lights. So for now, today, we're just going to zip tie these things, the wire, clean it up a little bit. And he's just hiding the wire up, doing one more zip tie, and it'll hide it up behind that boot there. All right, we're going to put everything back together. Of course, we've tested the lights, but we're going to show you what they look like at the very end. We're just going to go ahead and hook the wires back up. Remember, there's two guys. They should just snap back together.
These are for the turn signals.
And they'll just button the fairing back up there on the bike. And remember, at the very bottom, there's two, or actually the top, there's two tabs you'll see behind there. They kind of just fit in there. And then at the very bottom, there's a little nipple that you kind of have to adjust and get in there just right. There you go. All right, and Lurch is just doing that top bolt before we put the speaker grill back on, the inside bolts here to the fairing. And remember, the speaker grill just snaps right back in. It's got some tabs on it. And then we're just buttoning up the last three there on the bottom of the fairing on both sides, the three you can see there. All right, and so they're just going to put the two main wires that go back on the headlight. It does matter which one. You won't be able to get it in. They're a little bit different, so you really can't cross them. So, all right, and just don't forget there's the 4 bolts all the way around. Lurch is getting those back in. And if you didn't mess up anything, you shouldn't really need to adjust your headlight if it was already adjusted. So as long as we bolt it back in, it should be aimed just right. All right, and you're just gonna snap that bezel back on there. Just got a couple tabs on it. There you go, everything's buttoned back up. Let's check out how these lights work, how they look.